By the time the 2023 season is over, don't be alarmed if the Kansas City Chiefs are once again Super Bowl champions. This Kansas City team looks very similar to last season's, and with an absolute deserving win last year, the team is on track to repeat as world champions. I'm Chase Keller, and tune into this dive of the Kansas City Chiefs, why I believe they will finish 14-3, and how they came up in first in my 2023 NFL Power Rankings. The only updates that the Chiefs offense made for 2023 was improving the offensive line and giving Mahomes more weapons. We know how deadly this group was last season, and now teams are going to have to prepare for a better version of it. With that being said, let's discuss the offense. It's pretty easy to be elite when the NFL's best player is leading the pack. Patrick Mahomes continues to impress when we think there's no more ways he can possibly do it. Not only is Mahomes easily the best passer in the NFL, he's also opened a new gate to be able to scramble efficiently as well. With everything Mahomes can do, he's safely the best quarterback and the best player in the NFL. I will keep this section short, assuming we all know how elite Mahomes is. It's going to be hard to top his quote-unquote rookie season passing-wise, but 2022 was, in my opinion, his second best passing season of his career. He passed for more yards than he ever has in a single season, he threw his lowest turnover-worthy play percentage, and he did all of this with the third most dropbacks. Mahomes can make so many different kinds of throws, adapting to different mechanics and progressions. He's also extremely poised, and if you know me, that's what I like most out of quarterback traits. I've mentioned that he's only improved on the ground. He is fumbling less, he's taking off more than ever, and he's making the decision quicker. His rushing yards was the highest it's ever been in 2022, but his yards after contact was lower than both 2021 and 2020. Whether it's from statistical takeaways or film takeaways, it's hard to deny that Mahomes is the best player in the NFL and is a future Hall of Famer. Historically, the Chiefs had not had a great running back room, but it's not needed when you have an elite passing attack. Even then, the rise of Isaiah Pacheco was one to watch last season. As the 12th to last selection in the 2023 NFL Draft, Pacheco utilized the injury concerns of former first-round pick Clyde Edwards-Helaire to explode early on. Pacheco is primarily effective on the ground, having great vision and solid physical traits. With how diverse this running back room is, I'm not expecting Pacheco to make that jump in the receiving game, which means his overall will not raise too much higher. Especially towards the end of the season, Kansas City utilized Jerick McKinnon more in the receiving game. Clearly, it worked, as he put together over 500 receiving yards and 9 touchdowns, 8 of those touchdowns being in the final 6 weeks. And with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I'm under expectation that he either gets dealt or released, given that his volume is continuing to decrease. It's almost like Helaire is being thrown to the rocks, as Pacheco runs the ground game and McKinnon runs the receiving game. Moving on to this receiver group, they may be average, but with how young this core is, I'm expecting immediate development, especially with Mahomes at quarterback. Beginning with Kadarius Toney, I think we need to talk more about how Toney is so good when he's healthy. If Toney does become wide receiver 1 for Kansas City this season, he is going to showcase how elite his route running and shiftiness is. He's going to be used as a gadget player as well, given that Andy Reid's offenses normally have one. Lining up beside Toney should be Sky Moore in the slot. Moore is a guy I loved as an NFL prospect, and while he may have lost an overall point in 2022, there's so many points he can grab for 2023. Moore is such an athletic slot receiver with his deep ball upside and his open field shiftiness. Given how good this scheme can be for him, he receives breakout grade number 1 on this roster. There are 2 more left, so keep watching. The depth that Kansas City has at this position is crazy as well. They kept 7 wide receivers on the roster, and all of them absolutely deserve a roster spot. Marquez Valdes-Scantling is a very nice deep threat with deep athleticism. He's a little inconsistent with his route running, but he's solid overall. Rashee Rice is a rookie that I saw as wide receiver 5 in the 2023 NFL Draft. He's got top tier body control with solid route running and good athleticism for his frame. He does have some issues with drops, but that can be fixed at the next level. Finally, Richie James is another athletic piece for this offense, and he's projected to be the main return man for this team. This tight end group is so obviously elite. I mean, tight end 1 only counts towards 55% of the final tight end rating, and this group still falls under the elite tier as the best tight end group in the NFL. Travis Kelce is far and away the best tight end in the NFL. He's developing into one of the best tight ends in NFL history, and when it's all said and done, it's possible that he is the greatest of all time. Kelce has received 1,000 or more yards over the last 7 seasons, and last season just may have been his best one. He's playing just as good as a wide receiver would in the receiving game, showing his elite route running and his ability to be an open field threat. All this team needs in the receiving game is Travis Kelce. As for the backups, Blake Bell is a solid blocking option, and Noah Gray is an ongoing developmental piece. I was so excited for Jody Fortson's 2023 campaign, but sadly he will miss it due to a shoulder injury. Finally, this offensive line is developing into something elite. I wouldn't say it's there yet, but given some of these pieces, it could be coming soon. Replacing both tackle positions was a massive factor to improving this line. The hit here was Donovan Smith, the 30-year-old blindside blocker coming off a down year with Tampa Bay. Before 2022, Smith was consistently developing into a top-tier pass blocker, making it clear that he is a special left tackle. In 2021, Smith allowed only 1 sack, that 1 sack being week 2 against the Atlanta Falcons, which means from weeks 3 to 18, he didn't allow a single sack, which is crazy. Now, I do believe that right tackle Jawan Taylor was a miss in this free agency. He is a good pass blocker, but with his horrid run blocking capabilities, I do think he was an overpay. On the inside of the line, these boys are going to dominate. Left guard Joe Thuney is the NFL's best pass blocking guard, but not the best overall offensive guard. Thuney has allowed under 20 pressures in each of the last 4 seasons. He's an above average run blocker as well, but everything really comes out when protecting Mahomes. In the middle, Creed Humphrey has officially developed into the NFL's best center. He's only going into his 3rd season, and he's already an elite blocker in both pass and run. I was expecting good development out of Creed Humphrey, but this fast? Absolutely not. This is why I say watch out for John Michael Schmitz, as he reminds me so much of Creed as a prospect. On the right side is my second breakout grade on this roster in Trey Smith. His development has been fairly good, but I'm waiting for more. After becoming an efficient combo blocker in 2022, I do believe this breakout will come in 2023. The offensive coaching is something that I don't have to explain much of. Andy Reid is a top 3 to 5 head coach of all time. Reid's scheme is so hard to stop due to its creativity and versatility. When something seems as if it's finally broken, he pulls a new play out of his ass and it works every time. It starts with how the roster is built and how Reid can trust his players to do almost anything. But the main point of Reid's GOAT discussion is how he can bring together a huge variety in his playbook, switch plays up to mix in creativity, and from there, his roster makes his job look so easy. To summarize, the Kansas City Chiefs offense is easily in a tier of its own. With the NFL's best passing attack and most creative playbook, this offense will just continue to dominate. The Chiefs' defense is a slight downside to this team. Given only the offense and the coaching, this team is very easily the NFL's best. But mix in the defense, and the Philadelphia Eagles did come close to taking the number 1 spot. Obviously, Kansas City took first, but how did this defense make it so close? Let's talk about it. The first point is that the edge group sits in the bad tier, and in my opinion, edge is the most important positional group on the defense. This group has a bunch of potential, don't get me wrong, but there's no true starting caliber player. George Karlaftis moved down an overall point after a disappointing rookie campaign, but obviously he was a rookie, and he's got plenty of room to move on and develop into something special. As a prospect, I noted Karlaftis as extremely explosive, but he did struggle to utilize that well in 2022. I do believe that eventually he will develop into a good pass rusher with star upside. Michael Omenihu may be suspended, but when he returns, the Chiefs are getting a dominant pass rusher with fantastic technique. He compiled 54 pressures and only 417 pass rush snaps last year, but he shouldn't be seen on rundowns given his incapability of stuffing the run. Mike Dana has been a solid rotational piece for Kansas City for 3 years now, and given the selection of Felix and Udike Uzama, I don't see him evolving into a starting role. Speaking of Uzama, I did believe Kansas City reached for him, but even then, they're getting an athletic piece who can play both inside and outside. Uzama was my edge number 10 in this class, but he has the upside to be top 5 when it's all said and done. He's also very explosive off the edge, and he could be a guy who works just like Michael Omenihu except slightly better in the run. Moving on to the interior line, I am including Chris Jones, and with him here, this group sits in the great tier. Jones himself is a massive contributor to how good this defensive line is. In my opinion, with how Aaron Donald is developing, those two defensive tackles are tied for the best in the NFL. Jones has been the NFL's best pass rushing inside guy for the last couple of years now, being consistently at the top in both pressures and sacks. He posted a career best 77 pressures in 2022, and including the last 5 years, he averages out at 66.8 pressures a season. The depth behind Jones is not particularly impressive, seeing a backup caliber and 2 3-string caliber guys. Speaking of the backup guy, Derek Notty's development has been trotting the wrong way. His 2022 campaign was atrocious, as towards the back end of the season, his snap count started decreasing. But from 2018 to 2020, he was developing in the right way, becoming a phenomenal run defender. Now, he's close to returning to manageable status, which is where he began his career. Onto the linebacker core, not only do they have the starting talents, those starters have high upside and the depth is fairly solid. Beginning with Nick Bolton, he is most notable for returning a Jalen Hurts fumble to the end zone in Super Bowl 57. What he should be notable for is his near-star level play as a run defender. During his rookie season in 2021, Nick Bolton was first in run stop percentage out of players who played over 200 run defending snaps. He did barely make the top 20 in 2022, but to make up for that, he's been around 5% missed tackle rate for the first 2 years of his career. With how he's developing, I think it's safe to give Willie Gay Jr. the third and final breakout grade on the roster. Not only has Gay been getting better and better with more snaps, he's also going to develop beside Nick Bolton, a guy who has already broken onto the scene. Gay is a nice blitzer with decent coverage abilities. Sure, Gay may have allowed over 91% of his targets to be caught, but he's holding those receptions to 7.7 yards a catch. So yes, Gay should have a breakout campaign in 2023. Drew Tranquill is a nice rotational piece for linebacker 3. He totaled 133 tackles in 2022, a high number, but missing 15% of those tackles is concerning. Moving into the secondary, there really are only 2 guys I want to discuss. Both of them were on the brink of being labeled breakout players, but I could not pull the trigger. The higher rated player is Algerius Sneed, who had a very solid 2022 for coverage. I liked Sneed as a prospect, just like I did the next guy, but Sneed's deep coverage was more impressive. Sneed allowed 9 yards per reception in 2022, which was 5th highest among corners who played over 250 coverage snaps. Sneed's development should continue, and the hope is that it can now start preventing the receptions at a better rate. The second guy here is Trent McDuffie, who I was extremely high on as a prospect last year. He was my cornerback 3 in last year's class, very close behind the 78 overall players Derek Stingley and Sauce Gardner. He landed at a 76, and by gaining 3 overall points last season, he comes close to the 4th breakout grade. Last season, McDuffie did show off as a cornerback in deep coverage as well, allowing only 9.3 yards per reception. I just can't give him the breakout grade for this upcoming year, as last season he really struggled as a run defender. The depth here is pretty lackluster, and it's going to be a struggle if one of these first 2 corners goes down, especially early in the year. Finally, we reach the safeties, who bring another group with mediocre depth. This time around, the starters aren't nearly as impressive as the corners, bringing a group marked as terrible. Justin Reid is not terrible at all, being a manageable starter. I did like him more early on in his career, but it seems as if he's revitalized that time a little bit. Reid did show some flashes of great coverage instincts last season, but he did allow a passer rating of 103.4. I don't see Reid with much of a higher ceiling than how he's playing now, but maybe Kansas City will tap into unfound potential. Mike Edwards is the projected backup safety behind Reid, but I do like him more than Cook with his upside in coverage. Cook is the projected starter here, and I understand why after his 2022 performance, but I had a 6th round grade on him, and he moved up 5 overall points. Overall, he's just not my guy. The defensive coaching has developed into some of the best in the NFL. Steve Spagnuolo is that guy in Kansas City. Spagnuolo runs a switch scheme depending on the team he faces. In my ratings, I have him listed at a 4-2-5 personnel, but there will 100% be matchups where he puts out a 4-3-4 out on the field. Despite the personnel he puts on the field, he's great at getting to the quarterback and applying pressure from all players. He's also normally on the low end of points allowed, but his defense's yards allowed always makes for concern. Nonetheless, Spagnuolo is a great defensive coordinator. To summarize, the Chiefs' defense is a little bit of a downside to the team. Even then, you have to let this season play out, and I'm sure they will somehow finish in the top half of all teams in the NFL. Before I end every video, I go over the rating splits for offense, defense, special teams, coaching, and overall team. If you are interested in how the rating system works, it is in the description below. Starting us off with the offense, they have the best ranked offense at an 83.09. The defense is not so good. At a 72.76, they're ranked 23rd in the NFL, 13th in the AFC, and 3rd in the AFC West. The special teams is a little better at a 73.78, being ranked 5th in the NFL, 4th in the AFC, and 2nd in their division, only behind the Las Vegas Raiders. And the coaching is a perfect 10 out of 10 or an 80 out of 80, which is tied for 1st in the NFL, tied for 1st in the AFC, but clear-cut 1st in the AFC West. As an overall team, they receive a 78.56, which is 1st in their division, 1st in the conference, and 1st in the entire league. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. The power ranking series may be over, but there's a lot of in-season content coming and you're missing out. Once again, I'm Chase Keller from Chase Keller Journalism, and thank you guys so much for choosing this channel as your source of sports coverage. I'll see you guys in the next video.